Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have 3 brand new stories for you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story. Be nice to the person who manages your accounts. My company hosts a multi-tenant network. Multiple businesses are all working together on the same network and on the same projects. It can be a bit chaotic, especially when validating users and making sure they are who they say they are. Last Monday, one such issue popped up. During a routine password reset, I noticed that this user account had never been validated by the other company's point of contact, POC. I called POC to check that this user was indeed an employee of the company. POC, yeah, he works here. No, I can't provide you with the correct documents because I don't have them. Now kindly F off, I have work to do. I'm paraphrasing. Now this was basically an admission that this account should have never been made. When I told my boss, he told me to get it in writing. I wrote an email verifying that any accounts not validated by the company or data generated by those accounts would be locked. This email was sent to the POC confirming if this was the action he wanted me to take. POC responded that he couldn't help us right then and to disable the account. Now, notice that I said any accounts in my email, not just this specific user. While I'd been looking for this user, I noticed that he was not the only one. Almost no one from this company had been verified, not even the POC. My boss gave me his blessing, and so did my boss's boss. This was a possible major security breach, they said. Unverified user accounts on an R&D network where millions of dollars were on the line? Unacceptable. 2 levels of butt coverage in place, I proceeded to disable 164 user accounts, lock 12 terabytes of data, shut down 20 servers created by non-validated users, and disconnect 2 entire network segments. I learned from a friend who worked at this other company that when these accounts were disabled, the place basically collapsed. Most of the work they did was on the contracts at our site. None of the developers could do much except twiddle their thumbs at their desks. The company's CTO contacted us directly, and we exchanged the details of what happened. After a day of back and forth and a fax of the correct documents, most of the accounts were verified and everyone was back up and running. The POC was changed to the CTO, and the original POC moved on to pursue new opportunities shortly after. Note, our company had the contract for the infrastructure. We would host the servers and services needed to run any and all of the software created by the other companies. The other companies would use our setup to build the tools for the contract. That's how this mess works. And our second story. Cut my job, say goodbye to millions of dollars. I worked for a major U.S. telecommunications company for over 10 years. One of the jobs I had there was as emergency overnight tech support for our major accounts. I'm talking about accounts like emergency services, traffic lights, the FBI, NASA, and the White House. I personally fixed the White House Chief of Staff's phone twice. All of this was handled by 11 people in a call center that was one of 2 in the country that were open all night, mainly for customers who were overseas. Because we were such a small team and the people we dealt with were the overnight IT people at their various companies, we were on a first-name basis with many of the techs who called us. Then one day, the VP of our company decides to step down as VP and take a job as the head of another call center. His brilliant idea is to make his call center the only call center for all business and government accounts in the country, including the ones my team handled overnight. Naturally, this meant dissolving my team. We were all very upset. We liked our job. Only the absolute best techs got to be on our team, and for good reason. When something we handled went down, it had to be taken care of fast. And some of the systems we dealt with were so obscure or old that no one at the company except us and our daytime colleagues even knew they existed. This also meant that we had to be ready to answer at a moment's notice. So we spent most of the night doing nothing, just waiting for a call. The companies and government entities paid extra for this quick response. Even so, over the years, my team kept getting assigned more and more little jobs to do between calls, which we handled easily because, well, we were the best. It was almost my dream job. So when we get word that our jobs are going to this other call center that until now wasn't even open overnight, we were upset. Yet most of my team was still pretty supportive. We offered to train the new techs at the other call center. Some of us even offered to travel there for a week or so to do it, but we were all turned down. Our last week on the job comes, and we're there mainly as backup for the new team in the other call center. We're not being routed calls, but we're ready on chat if the new guys have any questions. The questions start coming in, and they are not what we expected. Instead of asking about obscure, outdated systems that no one but us even knew about, the new team is asking us about things like how to fill out a timesheet for a shift that starts before midnight and ends after. And this was their supervisor asking me. We end up answering really basic questions that anyone at our call center, much less anyone on our team, would have known, and we all got a bit worried. Then the supervisor who asked me about the timesheets asks how many calls we typically get in a night. And I say, between 2 and 5 per person usually. Then he asks how many people were on my team. 11, I say. 8 to 10 on any given night. Oh, the supervisor says. We have 33. I wondered why we were getting so few calls. They didn't have to do the little tasks my team did between calls either. They couldn't. They weren't even trained for the calls they were getting. The next week, my team was transferred into the normal overnight call queue, handling boring calls from people who didn't read or listen to the directions we gave them about how to make their phones work while overseas. Sigh. A week after that, other regular overnight reps start asking me and the other former elite reps questions about systems that only we would know about. Suspicious. A few days later, I get a call transferred to me. It's one of the overnight IT guys from the major accounts. I ask how he got a hold of me, and he says that the first guy he talked to transferred him to me. Turns out, of course, that the untrained reps at the new call center were still untrained, so they were just dumping calls into my call center's general queue and hoping that out of the 60 or so techs working there, the one who'd pick up would be from the former major accounts team. Since 3 of our 11 people had quit when our team was dissolved, the odds of that were pretty damn low, which meant it took multiple transfers, which meant they weren't getting the help they needed in the time frame my company was contractually obligated to provide. I went to the director of my call center to let him know about this, hoping it would mean that since the new team was failing that hard, the company would see reason to reinstate my team again. Nope. My director informed me that the team would not, under any circumstances, be reinstated at our call center. I could tell he was not happy about this at all. So then came the malicious compliance. My director told me and every other overnight tech at my center that if we were transferred a call for a major account, we were not to touch it, as we were not authorized to handle those accounts. The next night, the accounts wouldn't even open for us because our security clearance had suddenly been revoked. We were to transfer all such calls back to the correct queue. We were also instructed to forward any correspondence sent to us from the new major accounts team to our supervisors, whether chat or email. In a few days, the transfers to our center stopped. Now, I wish I could say the company saw an error of its ways, my team was reinstated, and everything went back to the way it was. But it didn't. Instead, the company hemorrhaged major accounts like crazy. We lost accounts whose monthly bills were in the millions of dollars due to our failure to keep the terms of our contracts. Barely a month after it was created, the overnight team at the other call center was disbanded and the jobs outsourced. Then the outsourcers started transferring the calls to my center. Again, I went to our director, hoping against hope my team would be reinstated. Nope, but the transfer stopped, again, and the company lost even more multi-million-dollar accounts. Last year, the company announced the layoff of tens of thousands of employees. I wonder why. I saw the writing on the wall and got the hell out with the best severance package I could. So did my call center director. He was no fool either, all because some idiot executive had a bright idea and not even the slightest clue how to execute it. All part of the plan, right? The new management team was brought in specifically to kill that company so that the CEO and board could retire and liquidate with massive bonuses. And our last story, government auditor from hell. Okay, so I'm a practicing accountant. I can't really identify the country for confidentiality purposes. I had a very dear client who was in the latter stages of cancer. As his condition worsened, we were contacted by the government for an audit. I submitted what I could, but without his assistance, critical pieces of information would be missing. I called the auditor and let her know the situation. Literally without even thinking, she said, "Since you're avoiding me, I will just disallow everything and find against him." I immediately demanded her name and her government ID. "You are not intimidating me," she said as she gave me her info. I put my practice on hold and asked my client's wife if I could get into her husband's office and search for the documents. With the help of my wife, his wife, and his 2 daughters, we got absolutely everything. I held off until the auditor made good her threat. Then I launched an appeal. In that appeal, I presented all of the documents. My client, although having passed, by that time was in the clear, and there would be no government claims against his estate. I then ended the appeal with the following. Due to the auditor's inhuman treatment of my client and her despicable actions, I hereby demand her termination. There was a crap storm that followed. First, her supervisor calls me, tells me that I can't demand her termination. I tell him to F off. Then the shop steward tells me that she is union and they don't get to fire his people. I tell him that she violated several of their stated parameters and she can be terminated for cause. Then I get the deputy head of taxation for our region. He takes time and listens and says that it's difficult, but I should not expect that she loses her job. The final call is her. How dare I? She lost her job. She's an immigrant to our country and her husband will beat her for losing her job. How can I do this to her? What has she done that was so bad? I basically told her that in this country we treat our dying people with dignity, that her actions warranted losing her job, and I hope her pension and benefits. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.